Alrighty. Hello and good afternoon. Sorry, I'm awfully close to the laptop here. At least you're not like seeing up my nose. Um, this is video 748, and just wanted to share a little bit. Um, I had the opportunity today to go on a drive with my daughter, and it was a good 2 hour, maybe 3 hour drive, and we went up to Patoka Lake in Indiana. I'd never been there before, neither had she. It was just a good long drive. And, as we were kind of walking along the shore of the lake and picking up shells and talking about, you know, things, I looked out on the lake and there were, you know, there was like a speedboat type thing and two or three, um, not paddle boats, what are they called? Pontoon boats. And I was reminded of my ex-wife's telling you a long story here. Sorry, it's going to be a little discombobulated. Uh, they had owned a piece of property on Rough River, another lake in Kentucky, and the property slash campground slash boat slip. It was a really nice piece of property on Rough River. Had kind of been passed down from one child to the next. You know, the the parent retained the property, but just each kid, as their children became a certain age, they started to go to the campsite more and more often, and started taking care of it, and fixing up things. Every year, seemed like every year. The pontoon boat. They had a pontoon boat. We had a pontoon boat. We had to rebuild the motor or do something to the engine of the pontoon boat, um, redo the gas lines and everything. But it was one of those things as I sat there and listened and talking to my daughter and I looked out over the lake, there was a part of me that was just kind of hit with a bit of remorse, maybe a little bit of a lament, because, kind of before we had gotten to the point where we would have been, my ex-wife and I, we would have become the benefactors, beneficiaries. We would have really benefited. It would have been our turn. She was the sixth child, fifth or sixth child in the line, you know, kind of right before we had gotten to that age where we would, have gone camping as much as we possibly could and gone boating as much as we possibly could. We got the divorce, we got divorced. And so I lamented a little bit about maybe all of the things that uh, my ex-wife's nieces and nephews and cousins and her brothers and sisters had gotten to do with their children that we didn't get to do with my daughter, growing up. Um, all the things that, I grew up in Florida and was quite accustomed to spending the 4th of July weekend with my uncle. And, he had a boat and we would spend they would rent a place on a lake. And for the week leading up to the 4th of July, um, we would go skiing and, get the tube behind the boat and pull it, and try and throw each other off. Uh, growing up, those kinds of fun family activities that I feel guilty. I feel like I put myself, because I had to transition, I could not put it off anymore. I could not put it off anymore. That, there was a time that I had really thought about waiting, you know. If your life is like my life, it's been a series of wait. It was a series of waiting. Now is not the right time to transition. Now is not the right time. I'm not ready. I don't have the money. You know, I'm not ready. All of the excuses. And I don't say that, like to diminish the value. I mean, when we're not ready, we're not ready. You know, to say an excuse says it's like a cop out. Maybe I should say a reason why I didn't transition when I was 22, a reason why I didn't transition when I was 31, 32, 35, 37, 40, 42, you know. And, part of me had kind of, you know, leading up to transitioning was, trying to figure out kind of what was best for the family and my daughter. And, there was a lot of guilt and discussions about me, that I was going to destroy, uh, I was going to destroy the family, and how dare I mess with my daughter's life. And, if I was going to, if I was trans, why did I have a child? And, it was like, the argument was, she didn't get asked to be born into this world. She didn't get asked to be born in this situation. Why was I fucking around if I, you know what I mean? Why was I having sex? Why did I get married? You and I think I've said this before. I think we, obviously, we do the best we can with what we got, but, you know, life, we, we, they say hindsight's 2020, but, we really don't know what's going to happen. And, do we live our lives in a bubble, in a plastic bag until we're ready to transition? And, I don't know. I don't know. I think I've made a couple of videos. I'm sorry, I'm playing with an eyeliner pencil. Um, I'll put it away. Sorry, put it down. Um, you know how much of our lives do we put on hold? You know, I'm sorry, that was the old thought I was just thinking. Let me go back to before I realized what I was doing with the eyeliner pencil. I was thinking about the trans youth, the kids, now who are, you know, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 years old, and they won't have to ask themselves. They won't have to go through that. I'm putting my life on hold because their parents, are so open-minded, or maybe it's just the society. I don't know. We could talk about this probably for hours. The situation's different today, here in 2021, than it was, you know, in the 70s when I was that age. Um, well, let's not go there. It's a bunch of negativity on my experience, but today, 2021, kids that can go to their parents, and, or their parents are open-minded, their parents are in the know to know kind of what it is, and therapy and counseling and all this other stuff. Those children will not have to evaluate, judge, and balance, you know, trying to be as much as my authentic self as I can be versus opportunity. And I had in my mind somewhat of a graph, and I'm not sure exactly how this is gonna appear, but it kind of talks about kind of opportunity. Um, time, but you know, I'm sorry, this is gonna be a half-baked idea, but the idea of we're born and our age as we go in time, we get older and older, older. the opportunity that we have to transition goes up, and you'll notice that this does not start down here. This is, for the moment, what would you say the age? Maybe 5 to 7, if you're lucky. 5 to 7 years old. The age that the baby can't articulate, the child can't articulate being transgender. You know, we may know that something's wrong, but the moment we can articulate it, and then the parent can do something about it. So we're there's a limit, a lower limit there. Um, things that they're not going to have to deal with. And then you'll notice I put these lines here. You know, there's different phases here, different phases, and this being, you know, prepubescent teenager, maybe later. It's probably several lines. you know, the older you get, the more you go this way, the more opportunity you have, at least in my philosophy, my experience, to transition. Um, More money that you have at your disposal. You might have insurance, whatnot. But then, inversely related to that is the effect that, uh, you know, hormones are going to have on your body. The more older you get and you have more opportunity to do things you want to do to yourself, surgery wise, chemically, and everything, the less those results are going to be. It kind of sucks. you know, when you get over here and you're, in your 40s and your 50s, and you're like, yeah, I'm going to do it. I'm going to transition, and you start taking the hormones and everything. Your body is out of its prime for those changes to take effect. And I noticed I was watching um, a day or two ago. I was curious about voice training. I get a voice training bug up my ass every once in a while, and they're trans girls, trans women, young trans women, probably around 20ish, maybe 20, 25ish, um, who, the right body type, the right size, the right skeletal structure, so that as hormone takes effect, I mean, it just everything lines up, and then they do these voice training, and they sound, I hate to say the word passing, but that's kind of what it is. You know, um, they're young enough that they have a large chunk of their life ahead of them, and they don't sound like I was known. Uh, their experience is very, very different from, kind of us old fucks, our experiences. And then, like I said, these kids in the toddler, this young group, the youngest group you can possibly be in, their experience is going to be so different because obviously their bodies are very malleable. They're going to have the changes, but also because their parents are allies. Their parents are, supportive and loving and everything. And I think, again, the more you go across that graph, at least contemporarily, the more resistance you're going to get from your parents, only because of the age and stage they were in as they developed. Now, 20 years from now, 10 years from now, 50 years from now, the parents, obviously are grown up in this realm, in these experiences, and they're going to definitely be more, excuse me, a lot of congestion. Um, they're going to be more amiable to it, but at this snapshot in time. So, you can only imagine. But anyway, back to that first thought. I haven't thought it through, but you know, I want to. Part of me, I think I have done it in the past, but today it really hit me. that I want to apologize. I feel like I need to apologize to my daughter. Um, Only because of the missed opportunities that I feel like my decision to transition may have, may not had. Now, in my situation, um, you know, it was not my transition that caused my divorce. Okay. Um, it was other factors that caused our divorce. But I mean, if those weren't there, the divorce would have happened because of being transgender. Um, but you know, on the flip side of all this, two cis people can get married and have a family and get a divorce and have the same missed opportunities for their children. You know? And kind of it's kind of a dream to think about a couple. I'll use an example. My parents, for example, um, you know, up until I was in middle school, it was my original set. My mom and dad were married. It was a double income. Um, every house we lived in had a pool. Um, we had my folks. We had boats. We would go boating. They had two houses. I mean, now that I think about it, we had a house on the west coast of Florida in the Gulf of Mexico, and we had a house on the, you know, what is it, the Atlantic Ocean side of Florida. You know, there was money and opportunity, and probably my sister and I probably would have gone to college. I mean, we're kind of butting into some white privilege here, I think. But and then there was the divorce, and uh, you know, the lion's share of income was from my dad, and my sister moved in with my mom. I stayed with my dad, and you know, uh, going to college wasn't an option for my sister. My mom couldn't afford it, and as it turns out, going to college really wasn't an option for me with my dad. But it started off to be that way before before transgender stuff kind of screwed up my college career. You know, I probably could have gone to school. You know what I'm saying? It's like it doesn't have to be trans that messes things up for a child. And so maybe that's a counterpoint to the other. But like I said, just today as I looked out on the lake, I thought about, all the things that you hope the best for your children, and all the things that because of the divorce and my transitioning. I mean, was it really my transition? No, it was other things. But um, you know, am I to blame? You know, did I make matters more complicated? You know, that said, um, you know, I had a talk with a friend of mine. He's a really cool dude, trans man. And I asked him, did you ever want to have children? And he said no. He said it, didn't seem like the right thing to do. And I knew that I wanted to be a mom, you know. So I did the next best thing, you know. I was a father, and I still am a father, I guess I should say. I'm still a daddy. But I have done the best I can with what I got. And that's all we can hope for, I guess. But anywho, I don't know if that's your experience too. I don't know too many trans women who have children. I only know a handful. Um, I almost wonder if it's something that we tend to avoid because we don't want to muddy the water as it is. And a lot of that depends on this graph. Where do you transition? You may have had children that grow up, graduate, go to college, graduate, and they're adults, and Then you transition so you don't have to worry about it. Um, I was watching a video yesterday. It was a relatively young trans woman, and she was doing voice training. That's how I found her. And her other videos were GoFundMe's. I mean, maybe every other video was a GoFundMe. GoFundMe for this, GoFundMe for that. And I felt for her because, like I said, when you're young, you don't have access to money to do the stuff you want to do. And I feel for her to be 24 or 25 years old, and you know what do you do? Do you transition and say to hell with it? I'm going to see wherever life gets me. Um, you know what I mean? And I had made mention of this before. I had transitioned when I was in my 20s. Um, yeah, when I was 21, 22, I transitioned, and I detransitioned because I didn't have the money. I couldn't afford it. So it was kind of a branch there. I decided I can't afford this. I'm going to put it off. But here's like the girl from the video yesterday who continued and got to the point, GoFundMe, GoFundMe. And she's 20, she's probably going to suffer more than, usual for the next 5 or 6 years. And then she's going to have 50, 60 years of being a fine young lady. I mean, body, voice, everything come together. Which is which is the better path to take? It reminds me of in the board game Life. You make the first decision. Do you go to college or do you go to work? And what's the pros and cons? Do you take debt? Do you not? Da, 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 da. You know, what is the outcome 10 years down the road? Uh, you know, those kinds of things. So I guess we have lots of choices. But anyway, I've kind of run out of steam. But that was kind of my video. And I will say that you know every time I have kind of talked to my daughter, and I have apologized. Um, we had a real good talk one day about when I first transitioned and how selfish I seemed. I don't think I was selfish, but it's hard when um, you're so happy for yourself. I finally get to do the things I want to do. You know, um, I finally get to wear lipstick whenever I want. I got to put my eyeshadow on whenever I want. Play with these things. And my cat's knocked over my makeup case. That's why everything's done. I don't sit around and play with these all day long. Um, you're so enthusiastic about doing the things that you want to do. It's we run the risk of neglecting other things. And my daughter never had. She's never gone hungry. She's always had clothes on her back. I mean, I have always been, as her father, I have always put her needs first. But from her point of view, you know, when I was going through my second adolescence, I had somewhat of a fuck you attitude, which I regret if I did. I didn't see it, you know. Um, but I had a talk with my ex-wife, and she said, "You did." she said, she said, after your surgery, she said you thought you were God's gift, and I was like, I don't remember that, but anyway. All right, well, I've droned on long enough, but that's kind of my update video. And I got this chart out. I was thinking about it for a couple days, and I've talked about it before that as the older you get, the more opportunity you have to do the things you want to do with your transition. But then conversely, the less uh, the less responsive your body is going to be. And it I mean, many a therapy session have I spent talking to my coach, my counselor about, it's not fair, it's not fair, it's not fair, and eventually you just have to suck it up, put on your big girl panties and just accept it, you know. And I think that I'm not shutting up like I said I was going to be, but that's a problem that I've seen. Uh, I'd say in about maybe half of the trans women I know is they keep on coming back saying, "What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? Why can't I be?" You know, they keep on barking up a tree. You know, we're we're 50 years old. We're not going to be 20 something years old. I mean, we're just not. It's like me watching the little Barbie girl last night talk about her voice training, and um, I thought it was a joke until she lowered her voice, and I was like, "Holy fuck, that's amazing!" You know, just with practice and practice and practice to get rid of the resonance in your voice. But anyway, we've dealt with that shit already. But anyway, all right, I'll shut up. Talk too long. But I wish you the best of luck in your journey, your transition. Um, being your authentic self as you define it. It's our world is changing. Our world is changing. Um, I noticed that a form I had the other day, and I'm sorry I forgot where it was, but it had gender choices on it, and it had male, female, non-binary was an option, and I think something else, other or something something. And it just goes to show how our society, um, the things around us are changing. On Facebook, you might see someone very indignant, non-binary, violent, which again, if people are not open to it or responsive to it or aware of it, it's the only way the education is going to get out. But um, there was another story. Sorry, I'm not finishing my thoughts. It was a school board. It was a school board in Alabama, and the state legislature has ruled that you know boy trans girls can't participate in all girls sports. And the school board had actually said no, that's not what we're going to do. The school board is going against the state legislature. The state legislature, if you think about it, is a bunch of people that are removed. You know, they're trying to do what they think is best for their chances of being reelected. Okay, but they're not the ones in contact with the trans youth. Okay, and so it's very easy for them to have misconceptions. But if you're a student or a parent, I mean, parent's going to be obviously the best firsthand experience. But if you're a teacher of a trans child, you're going to be like, what? You know? And so, on that, where the rubber meets the road, for lack of a better expression, those are the people who are saying, no, I am not going to discriminate against this child who needs love and attention and direction. I'm going to educate, I'm going to teach. That's why I got into teaching, was to give equity to all my students. And that is so very different from this other group of people who are so removed and almost arbitrarily making oh no, you can't do that. So it'd be interesting to see what happens. Um, my hope is that, again, like the forum that I talked about, that stuff is going to be everywhere, and all of a sudden, these people in the legislatures and whatnot, and I'm going to say Republicans, but that's just the way it seems to be, are just going to be like, they're going to be like, well, no, and they're so stuck in their ways. but everything around them is going to change. It's going to come to the point that they're going to be the ones who are in the minority, and everyone else is just going to go, "What's wrong with you?" You know what I mean? And it's going to be a wake up call, especially not to get too political, but I mean, the Republican Party has got to change or they're going to go away. I mean, I hope they go away personally, but you know what I mean? I mean, uh, Bob Dylan says you don't have to be a weatherman to know which way the wind's blowing. Um, if you're stuck in your ways of being racist and whatever, I mean, you're not long in this world politically, you know, as long as we continue to have voting, which I know they're trying to keep people from voting, but, eventually it just takes time. It just takes time. It just takes time, by golly, and hopefully, I hope you're over here. You don't want to be over here. Be over here. Please be over here. Because once you get here, only so much you can do. Only so much you can do when you get to be an old fuck. All right, that's it for me. I've said too much. Till next time. Bye bye. Good luck.